This time we'd like to call the April 21st, 2025 Finance Committee meeting to order. First step we need to do is adopt the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Ford. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McClendon. All right. Item 3 is approval of minutes from the October 18th, 2024 Finance Committee meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion. Second?
Second.
Mr. McClendon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All in favor of the second motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I apologize for that. This is the first meeting I've sat here, so y'all bear with me because that is not the only mistake I will make. Before we move on to item 4, I'd just like to thank Ms. Burns for her leadership on this committee the last 2 years. I think we did a lot of good work in this room with her sitting in this chair. I think it's going to make our job this year look a little bit easier. So, Ms. Burns, thank you very much for that.
Amen.
Item 4, new business, 2025-26 General Fund Budget Overview, first draft. Ms. Stanley, I will hand it off to you.
Okay, thanks. And you have several different things in front of you, but the first two that we're really going to be concentrating on is your budget, which is in the green packet, and then you have the departmental budget request, which is in the blue. But just to look at the budget, first of all, as always, I give you a first draft. Well, this budget, we've carried it a step further this year. It's got the first draft, and then it's also some of the items that the committee wants to kind of concentrate on. I went ahead and listed that because we're kind of like trying to combine like two budget meetings in one. So the items that's in addition to that's got to be changed, that needs to be adjusted, is I went ahead and incorporated a 5% across the board COLA increase. But I do have other scenarios that you can see sitting at your desk. It's got 4 different scenarios there with the yellow and orange highlights. The one page, there's your 3 other scenarios. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But then I've also got in there a convenience center fee. We've tried to do this a couple years, so we once again are trying to look at this again. So this budget has the convenience centers in their own department, and it's $47 fee in the unincorporated dwellings, and then $20 for the municipalities. And then we've also got, I know one of the hot topics this year is trying to get some help with solicitor and the public defender. We've incorporated 1 slot for the solicitor for the whole 12 months, and then another slot for just 6 months. So, we're going to look at seeing, okay, they're doing a pretty good job. We're going to fund them the last part of the year from January to June, another solicitor. So it's a solicitor and a half, and then 1 public defender. And I just want to make note, that this is in addition to the already, we still have budgeted in our department the investigator that we done last fiscal year. And then just, make y'all aware of this. At any given time, if this doesn't work out this year, we can take it back because it's not in their department. It is in the general fund. So I just wanted to throw that at you. And then we also have got incorporated a security officer. I know we've talked for years the importance of getting a security person for this building because all the money that's housed in here. So that's incorporated in the administration. We got that salary in our department. And then also, as you're aware of, last year the sheriff had come to you about the gang and domestic violence grants. And we funded it for the remaining of the year, but then we were going to bring it back and talk about it this budget year. So I've got that incorporated in there. It's in the budget. And then we got the 2 truck driver slots for the road department, those CTC. Remember, CTC said they were going to give us more gravel this year and other years to help with the dirt roads because they're not doing that much paving. So we needed those 2 truck driver slots, so we've got that incorporated in there. And then I've looked at the rollback and the CPI. We can raise CPI 3.57 mils, but we also have some banked. But what this budget I've got incorporated in here is actually rolling back because our current operational millage is 94.53. So I went back and I have rolled back and done a 1 meal increase. So right now, I've got the budget for 91 meals for this budget. And I actually took it a step forward and took my tax bill from last year, and I done the reassessment on it. And basically, with 91 meals, my tax bill should go up on my house about $22. So I figured that would be something good that y'all want to know. So I done that. But if you want to, we can start going through this budget, and I've got the departmental, what each department's asked for, I've got it in here, but I do not have it added in, I've just got it as a side note. So that's gonna be a decision that y'all will need to make, is if you want to fund any of these departmental requests that they have. But like I said, it's not added in the budget, it's just as a side note in red on the side. So if you want to, we can start going through that. I'll tell you what page. We'll just skip over the revenue for a second. If you'll go to page 12. And this is pretty much the solicitor and the public defender request. So if you want, what's y'all's discussion or what's your thoughts on the solicitor is requesting 2 personnel and the public defender is requesting 1. But, I've got, and I actually don't have it added in here, I've got it added in our department. On page 20, I got $385,000. But I've got, because it's their request, but I've got, like I said, I've got 1 full solicitor and a half a solicitor for half of a year and 1 public defender, which is equivalent to $385,000. And that's where if you choose to do so, I'll keep it in the administration department. So at any given time, if it doesn't work out, then we can take that back in a year or so.
I think this is a gesture to try to throw a last resort at the judicial system before we spend the amount of money it's gonna take to build a jail, to see if we can help promote more trials and work on the jail numbers and get justice for victims. I think that's a huge issue, and, I would support this, and instead of doing the 2 for the solicitor's office, I think it would be nice to do the 1.5. We could give them 1 now, and that would give them 6 months to get them hired, trained, situated, and then, come January, you could fund a second one to give them an opportunity to make it happen.
Can I ask a question? New to this, I'm gonna learn as I go. By doing this budget, do you know at this moment, you probably do, are we gonna have a surplus at the end of the year based off of this budget?
If it's like all other years, we always have, because that's one good thing that helps us with not having to do a budget transfer reserve at the end of the year is, 1, we always get a little bit more revenues than what we budgeted, and plus we don't expend everything that we have budgeted to expend.
They are a surplus.
But now, in speaking of this line item here, yes, you would expend every bit of it, because see, what they do is they will bill us quarterly or semi-annually.
That's fine, when I do my church budget. First thing they wanna know, total income versus total expenditure at the end of the day. Do we have a surplus?
Yes.
If we have a surplus, everybody happy.
Yes, that's right, because
That's
it
my
makes
question.
it makes me a happy woman if I don't have to do a reserve transfer. That's right.
Also, them stop talking.
No.
On the first page 12 of my calculation, that's $176,276 increase from 2024-5 to 2026. So that's where we at on that. Okay.
And you know, the one good thing I like about not doing, if you're thinking about doing, you know, 1.5 of the solicitor, by not giving them that full other slot, then if you get around November and they're not doing what they're supposed to do, we don't have to give it to them. You know, so that's one cool thing about not doing both of them up front, you know?
Yeah, we all agreed on doing that. That's good.
What's the St. David Cemetery?
They've done that a couple of years. They'll send in a request, and they do it to the counties, and they probably do it to some of the municipalities. So I always, you know, to be fair, anybody that asks for anything, I always put it in there. And they're just asking, I think they're doing like fencing and doing some renovations around their property, and they'll send in a letter. They've done it like 3 times. And
Is there any reason why we would do that?
that's what I was going to say. In the past, we've never done it because you kind of open yourself up. If you give to one, then it's going to be a steamroll, you know, effect. Everybody's going to start.
Yeah,
But in the past, they haven't done it.
I don't think we can donate tax dollars.
Exactly. So I always put it in there because they request, you know? So I can say that, you know, I have brought it to our committee because I don't want y'all to be blindsided either. If somebody comes and says, well, y'all didn't think about, you know, giving it us, da-da-da. So you'll know that they have asked.
Any further discussion on those line items?
No, sir.
So basically, what we're looking to do is add 1 solicitor and 1 public defender, and at mid-year, add the second
If
solicitor.
everything-
If everything is as we hope it is,
Yep.
as it should be.
I thought you do a 1.5.
Yeah, 1.5, add both get 1 up front, and then at the midpoint in the year, the solicitor, we can bring on another one.
All right.
And these are under our budget,
Yes, sir.
so if at any point in time it's not working, whether it's unforeseen circumstances or whatever, I can get behind that.
Sounds good.
We need to do anything besides all agree.
Okay, yep. Do you want to do what we usually do, Heath, is just vote on it at the very end, or do you want to do a motion and a second on each individual? That's what that's what I just want to make sure.
All right?
Okay, so if you'll turn to page 15 is our next one. It's the clerk of court. And the only thing that she's only asked for 1 increase, and she's asked for a 30% COLA increase for her employees. And
I was hoping that was a typo.
no, it's not. And then the bonds, she's actually saying that it could be decreased to $800 instead of $1,000. And then her court expense, she's requesting to decrease it to 35, but I would say okay on that, or I'd be in agreement on that. But I don't know if y'all heard last week how they didn't have enough to, for a juror for that court case, and I think the judge, I was told that the judge told her that she needed to start pulling more people. So I think that we might better leave that alone and not decrease that, just in case if she has to start pulling more people.
With what you're hoping for the solicitor and public defender also. I do. Yep.
Yeah, I also have made the comment that instead of sending the notifications regular mail and the court not having any teeth to enforce the rules about not showing up, if we're going to expend the resources to go to trial, which we are making a large investment, if we have to spend $5 or $10 to send every one of them certified mail, that's what we should be doing, in my opinion. That way, it gives the court some teeth to say, you received it, so here you go. I don't think we need to cut that, because I think the judge did order them to
Yep.
pull an extra 100.
That's what I was told. So I was in agreement with that up until last week when I heard that. Because I think they didn't have, I can't even remember how much, they didn't have enough to even have the hearing.
What's the cost, do we know what the cost is to send something certified when you got verification and delivery?
Is it $8 or $11, I think? That's return receipt, signed receipt,
Call it
but
10.
it might be,
You send out 150, $1,500. Is that right?
was it
Yeah.
$6 for that one that you
And
done?
how much is a stamp now? I don't even know, because I don't ever send anything.
Oh, it's
Gotta-
70-something, 70-something cent.
If you send, I
73
mean,
cent.
I know that's a big difference, but I'd rather send out something to 150 people we guarantee gets there than I had.
$1,500 would have been a cheap investment for what we lost by not being able to have that trial last
Exactly.
week. There's no telling what the true cost to the taxpayers was to have all that in place and not be able to move forward with it.
Well, I mean,
Do
if
you
it's,
get a fine if you don't show up if, like,
You can go to jail.
You can be held in contempt for not,
so
but
you could
we
get
don't need
it
to lock
back?
anybody else up for that right now. We're trying to get them out of there.
Yeah.
Can we just fine them?
I think Mr. Ford's point is, if you can't prove that they got it, if
Right.
you're just sending
This
it regular
way-
mail, they can say, oh, I didn't get it, and you have no proof, so.
This way you can get it and possibly recoup some money back.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Well, the cost of leaving one individual that we could have cleared out for 30 days longer is $1,650.
60 days.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm just saying,
'Cause they-
$1,650 every 30 days that he
Yeah.
sits there now that we didn't get his case off the book.
So now the problem is they moved that case to June. So now we're gonna lose a whole week of trial in June because there was no trial or there was no court in May. So now that person's in jail for 60 days longer, and now we still got to get all these victims, or all these witnesses and family members and, everybody back from 3 different states. So it's a huge issue.
So you're gonna add that 5,200 back in her budget, since we're not gonna take that from her, correct?
No, it'd be, 35.
Yeah.
5,000.
It's, well,
We all agree, we're not, we declined.
yeah, we're just, yeah, I haven't taken it out, it's already, it's in there.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
okay. That ain't bad, that ain't bad at all. I look at the bottom line numbers of the increase,
Yeah.
$4,000.
Yeah, and that $4,000 that you see that's already increased is actually that COLA increase that I've got incorporated in there.
That's good.
Now, on page 16, there's nothing,
me ask you a
yes, ma'am.
You're not incorporating a 30% COLA in?
No, ma'am, no, ma'am. This is 5% across the board.
Okay.
Are you in favor for that, Ms. Burns?
Excuse me?
I said, are you in favor of a 30%?
Absolutely not. I definitely vote against that. I'm not even on the committee.
That's not even funny, is it?
That's what they requested, they want.
Yeah, I'm gonna decrease. Okay, if you look on page 16, this isn't anything to discuss, but I wanted to show you one of the examples of, how you use the ARPA money to help with day-to-day operations. Well, you see how much this department, we were able to decrease $15,000. And that's net now with that 5% COLA increase. It was $23,000. So that's just one of the ones I just seen as I went to flip past there, I wanted to show you. And see, and that's actually money that you're gonna save through fiscal year 28, 29. So I just happened to think about that when I got to that page. I was gonna point that out to you. So, you'll see that line item depleted until that fiscal year. Page 17 is probate, and she's requesting, a $500 increase on her training and travel, because one of her classes has went up a little bit, so she's just requesting for that to increase to $4,000 versus the $3,500. So I figured that was a minimum.
She always does so well.
Yep. Okay, and then on page 20, which is actually our department, the administration, when we've already discussed where you see at the bottom where I get that $385,000, that's the solicitor and the public defender, but we already discussed that. But the other item that we need to discuss is the security guard, and it's a Class 3 personnel, and their salary would be $40,845.
And what's a class 3?
They have the same authority as a Class 1, but they're supposed to be accompanied by a Class 1 if they're making arrests and things like that. They're more in line of the, assistant, paper servers, civil process, things like that.
They work 8 hours a day? What's the schedule?
They need to work, the hours that the doors are unlocked. The-
And that's one of the items that you could discuss in conjunction with when we get to the sheriff's office.
Well, that's my question. I think we need to do this, but I also think it needs to be established that if we're gonna fund this position, this isn't something to add to and take away. This position needs to be manned at all times, and if they're short somewhere else, they can't take our security guard
Right.
from here to use how they want to. That's my opinion.
Well, that's the right opinion. His primary job is here, or her job.
Now, at this point, would we need to wait and discuss the slots that are being requested from the sheriff's office as part of this? or just-
Yeah, you could, because how do y'all want to do, do you want this supervised under the sheriff's office?
I think you have to because of the law enforcement side, but I don't think, there's got to be a difference, or there's got to be a real understanding that this is their job.
They work for the sheriff's office, but they're are to stay here. They're
The
set
sheriff can't pull them and give us a substitute.
And what y'all decide with the sheriff's office, Michelle and I can have a meeting with the sheriff afterwards and lay it out how we'd like, depending on how y'all want to proceed with the sheriff's department, so.
Yeah.
And I mean, we even, I already kind of discussed all the way down to like if this person's on vacation or out sick, then they would need to bring someone in to cover them for us.
So anytime anybody's having a meeting here, anytime these doors are open, that person's duties are to be here.
Well, I think if we're having a meeting, then he would do like he does now, because that person would still be housed out there. We wouldn't want to take them away from the front door.
Yeah, but say, if one of the committees, zoning committee, is meeting here,
Yes, ma'am, after hours, yes, sorry, I misunderstood, yeah, after hours, so you're right, Miss Hattie.
That's gonna be a little difficult to do. That's why I asked about the hours of operation. Anybody wanna take this job and come in the morning time and get off at 4 and come back at 6? They done put their time in. Unless we got some type of master schedule that they gonna know a month in advance, here's your schedule. And is this job a salary job? It's not an hourly job, right?
This will probably be an hour.
Yeah, probably hourly.
Hourly, because you've got to be supervisor position to do it.
If it's an hourly job, then that can work, but, they need to make, whoever gonna control it need to make sure that they stay within the 40 hours, cause this salary based off of 40 hours a week, right?
Yeah, and in the special meeting after hours, I mean, y'all could possibly compensate him time and a half to stay extra 1 hour. You know, if y'all choose to do so, that way you don't have any gaps in security here.
I would make sure there's a schedule in advance for that month. Here are the meeting, here's your hours and your time. That way whoever's having it can adjust from there and make that happen. And you wouldn't have to pay for, overtime because that time fluctuates. 40 hours is 40 hours. You ain't gonna have no meeting in no month time, gonna last no 40 hours here. Okay, how many meetings you have? But their pay don't go down, they still get paid for 40 hours, but it shouldn't have to go up.
I agree. We shouldn't be basing this on looking at overtime.
Right.
We should be looking at a schedule that could be worked within that 40-hour week.
I think it
And
should
that
be
could be a
salary.
discussion we have with the sheriff, as knowing that we've got a meeting planned this week, it's probably gonna be 2 hours. Can you relieve him somewhere within the week of 2 hours so he can, see over the meeting and not get paid overtime?
Which, how many meetings do we actually have that are after hours?
Well, we're gonna have our planning commissions, that's every month now, and then right here lately, we've had a zoning for the last 2 months.
And you're not meeting every day throughout the whole day, neither. So
But-
it balance out.
2 a month roughly?
But the problem is if you stick to, only working 40 hours, if they get 5 hours at night, that's 5 hours that's gonna get taken out of the daytime, so you're gonna be uncovered for 5 hours during the day.
Unless the sheriff will send someone over to, well, let's allow for those 5 hours, and that's a discussion we just have to have with you.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, between here and the courthouse, they can probably find somebody who wants to work a couple hours extra at night. I mean, even if we have to pay them overtime.
Well, I mean, I don't see an issue with paying them, you know, the overtime for if we have a couple meetings and they have to come over here and you give them 4 or 5 hours overtime in a month. I don't think that's, I mean, that's what they do to school resource officers. They have to be at every game and all that stuff. And, you know, I think they really like getting that overtime.
They travel and everything else.
Yeah,
That would be the easiest setup right there.
yeah. I think we all in the right direction.
We just monitoring, gonna come next year, you look down there, you see 60,000 instead of 40. You know, some adjustment need to be made. And I guarantee you that's gonna
Think about
happen.
it, you have to pay people for their time or you're not gonna keep people.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen.
We've just gotta figure out how to compensate people and balance it out, where we can all swallow it too.
But at the end of the day, there's no price for security.
that's right.
That's the bottom line.
Very true.
Okay, so on page 21, they're just asking, you know, this all be discussed as, you know, one bulk thing, but a COLA increase on the assessor's office. Then the next page on 22 is the auditor, and he's also requesting a COLA increase. And he's requesting a $200 increase because of his training and travel. He's requesting for it to go up to 1,000.
That's fair.
Yeah. Okay. Now, on page 23, this is the treasurer's office. He has requested an extra $2,560 for extra week or extra work time for the part-time employees. He's wanting them another week during tax season, right there in December and January. He's requesting for another like pay period and a little bit more actually, because it'd be more than, one pay period would be more than $2,000.
Is he gonna guarantee us everything in the correct time frame?
Fair question.
Yep. I mean, that would be a stipulation.
I know it's been a major issue since I got on here, that we're always behind.
He's gonna guarantee it about like he's guaranteed it in the past.
Well-
None.
Well, that might be a topic of discussion then.
And I can have that conversation with him, you know, they're in agreement to do this, but now we don't want to hear whenever it comes to audit time that we having to wait on y'all.
His brother Jack off.
Fred.
Fred, oh yeah, Fred Harris, right.
Yeah, well, if we give 2560 and they come up short again, we'll just take 5 off of it next time.
Okay, so let's see here. The next page is actually going to be the sheriff's office on page 27. And this is where we're requesting those 2 grant employees. And then he's also requesting on technical support for that to be increased to $61,190. And then the custodial, he's requesting for that to be increased to $2,500, which I'm okay. I think $1,400, I think that would be fine to leave it at $1,400. And then the animal control, they're requesting that to be increased to $22,500. And then also, once again, he's done this for the last 2 years, he's requesting the county to fund the $25,000 instead of for the warrants for the telecommunicators, the dispatch. You know, they would give them $1,000 on their annual salary to be able to do the warrants there. And he's requesting for us to take that up instead of him having to give us $25,000 at the home detention. He's once again asking for that.
How can we articulate the increase from 27.5 to 61.9 for technical support?
There's 2 different software. There's that Celebrite, and then there's another software that they're wanting to buy.
So what would it be technical support for?
Is it a purchase or support after?
Yeah, it's to purchase it and to pay the annual support.
So the purchase price would be one time, and the technical support portion of it would be ongoing.
Yeah, it's Clearview system for facial recognition, and that's Celebrite for the phone record dumps. And then also it's IDEMIA for fingerprinting reading.
Great technology, what it is.
My only concern is it's about like those metal detectors that were bought, that they're still not even hooked up, hadn't even been put in use. I've been watching one at the jail,
And it's
every
not-
day that I go over there, and it's never been plugged up. I'm all for if they need it and are gonna use it, then I can understand it and go along with it. But if it's just buying toys to say we have it but not using them, I got a problem with it.
I agree.
I'm like, either I think we should support them, but I think we should hold them accountable to get it and use it. That's where collaboration come in at. I know he wanna do right for the sheriff department, and this advanced technology, you have to have it, because things are changing every day in the world.
We also want to write it, if we choose to fund this, what part is software driven and what part is support driven? Because next year we'll just need to support it, right?
Right.
That's right.
Let's make sure the purchase part of it
That is
doesn't
correct.
ride in the budget year after year unnecessarily.
That is correct.
Next year, because I mean, if the support on is $2,000 a month, I'd be surprised if it's that high, the technical side.
And I can, before y'all make a decision on it, I can find out some more information.
We can question him when we talk to him.
We also should be able to have conversations at this time next year, so tell us how this played out. I mean,
Right.
I know the facial recognition stuff works because actually one of the police officers took some of my video footage from a shoplifter at my store and sent it to SLED, and the Fusion Center sent back a name off of my security footage.
that's awesome.
It's amazing.
This random drug test, is that for his staff?
Yes, sir.
Dang, $41,000 test your own people. They shouldn't be doing nothing over there. Okay. The grant, that's $179,000 for, 2 grant writers?
Well, that's plus the COLA increase too. The 2 grants was like $60-something thousand because some of it's already funded because these grants, we had to have a 10% match. So some of it was already funded in the sheriff's office budget, but this is to fund the remainder of it.
I don't know, I was looking at this.
What page are you on, Mr. John?
I'm on
Page
page
27.
27. The sheriff stuff.
Random drug.
You know, we nice from Chesterfield County.
Oh, got it, all right. I just spotted.
I was Chesterfield County, it seemed like every department had their own grant writer. I was on the coordinating council, got the same thing. Why can't we just have grant writer for whole county?
We got one, and she's in economic development, but now there's a person within the sheriff's office that does all the DPS ones.
This right here also is showing grant employees. It's not grant writers.
Yes.
It's employees that they had that were being funded from grants that they had.
And the grant went away.
As officers, and the grants went away. So now they're wanting the county to cover it, to cover those expenses.
And just so you know, it went away about 6 months ago, and council decided to fund it, those 2 positions up till now. And now, that's what we've got to decide, whether we're gonna continue to fund it or else.
See, most of these grants just last 3 years.
So by funding it, they'll still be able to request other grants.
On those 2 positions, and we may have already talked about this well, I don't think we have today. Is it unreasonable if we're going to fund those 2 spots to request part of that cover our security here at the building, the administrative building?
Well, I
We
mean,
can cover these 2 spots.
you could say we cover one, you give us a security officer.
We'll cover
Unless,
both.
unless that is included in your grant, you can't do that.
Well, the grant's gone.
No, the grant's
They wanted us to
gone.
cover it.
Oh, grant's gone.
We're
They're
funding
asking
these
us to pick up the
positions
bill for
now.
Oh, okay.
Yep, we're funding them now.
Since you funded, you can do what you wanna do.
We weren't funding it, now we're gonna pick them up. I mean,
Yes.
that's kind of, I know it's splitting the difference, but
I think that's a good
Yeah, I do too. He getting what he want, but we just got some stipulation involved.
We need some help.
So basically, we would say, we're not gonna fund, the security position. He's gonna have to do that in-house and keep somebody over here regardless.
Let him worry about the overtime.
Let him worry about all that. The only thing we're gonna pay for is the two spots
The
that they're
two
asking
slots,
for.
so we're understanding you correct, we're gonna fund the two slots, but in return, what we want is security every time the doors are open at this building from here on.
Right.
The other thing on those two spots, I wanna make sure that we're not hiring, or we're not using those positions for, to be top-heavy, or not utilizing those positions for, being productive.
What are those two positions used for right now?
Well, because I mean, the gang, I'm not knocking on any of the officers, but I know that the gang spot is just a name, not an actual thing. So as long as we ain't funding somebody else to walk around and drink coffee,
Right.
It's actual working.
yeah.
Okay, fair.
I mean, the guys on the road need help. I mean,
Absolutely.
they need help. I wanna make sure that we using the money to help the people who need help, not just wasting money.
Okay, we can.
Good.
How about animal control? That's on the.
Yeah, what is it? I'm making myself a note. Okay, okay, so I'm gonna ask more questions about the tech, and then we're gonna deny the custodial. Then the animal control, they want to increase it basically $2,500.
I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but what's it for?
It's saying the increase in gas and equipment needed. And also, I just thought about it. If you look in the budget request, there are actually letters that people have written in lieu of these two grants, say, you know, kind of, I guess, you know, backing them up to what they're, how much they're needed. So if y'all will, you know, take you a chance to read over that too, because they've put that in there.
The domestic violence, the domestic violence grant, I can tell you firsthand, I've seen that work tremendously. You know, and the officer that was holding the gang grant position, it's no fault of his, but he's been pulled into other things, and that's just a name and
Gotcha.
not a thing.
But yeah, but the increase for the request for the animal control is the increase in gasoline and equipment that's needed.
Question, and I don't remember this, and I apologize, but when we went through the departmental request at the end of last year, was there anything for animal control in there?
Was there anything in there?
For animal control? Their request on that, their wish list?
Yeah, I mean, they had requested last year, and I don't think we increased it last year.
Talking about when we did the ARPA money stuff.
Oh, yeah, we got traps, we got traps, we sure did.
Gas really hadn't changed.
If anything, it's gone down.
Yeah.
Yep,
I'm not trying to nitpick them here, but I thought that was
Yeah.
one of the reasons we
yeah,
did that, was
I,
to take stuff like
yeah, I got 5 dog and cat traps.
My thing is, if it's for gas, we've said it before, we're gonna pay for the gas, whether they,
Yep.
you know, if, whatever they need gas-wise, we're not gonna tell them you can't drive no more.
That's right, that's how we've handled the last couple of years, utilities, gasoline, we're gonna have to pay it regardless, so, you know, that's the case, Mr. McClendon, like if, you know, it doesn't go over budget, hey, we've saved some of our expense.
So, you know, that line item don't need to be there then, right?
Right.
Cause we gonna pay for it anyway.
We'll pay for it anyway.
Let
Okay.
them know that.
And then what about the other item is requesting the county to fund the 25,000 out of the, instead of the home coming from the home detention.
Where did we fund it from last year?
The home detention, they write it, that, in July, they write me a check coming out of the home detention. That's an account that he has for that ankle monitoring. And whenever, to see, your warrants have to be housed at a 24/7-day location. So it's either got to be detention center or E911. So the sheriff asked us to house it at E911. Well, that's putting more work on those dispatchers. So he agreed, about 3 years ago, to give them $1,000 on their annual salary. So
What
that's what he's asking for. Instead of it coming out of his home detention now, he's wanting the county to fund it.
They deserve it.
Take it out of his source of revenue.
And
put
home
it on ours.
detention, home
Exactly.
detention's usually generated somewhere
Around
around
70, that's right.
75,000 a year for them.
I think he needs to keep it. I don't think the county needs to pick that up.
I agree with Ms. Burns.
Okay?
What did you say?
I think it needs to stay with the sheriff's department and not become a burden to the county, not become a bill for the county.
And they do have the funds to do it?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. I'm
They
sorry.
collect about 75,000 a year, and
Well, let them do it.
it takes 25 of it and gives it a home.
And just to give you a little bit of background, basically what they use that money for is for like, creating money increases for the officers, and then they pay their ankle monitoring expense out of that also.
Yeah, let them do it. If they can do it.
But there's still more than enough with the expenses that come out of
Yes,
that
sir.
to cover that cost. So, that move would be simply him freeing up $25,000.
Now, knowing him, what if,
25, he's freeing up to do it.
but Chair, what if he come back and say he would do half? Cause I know he gonna come back.
I say we just let him keep
Well,
it to be done with it,
yeah.
revisit it next year,
Okay.
he'll ask again.
All right.
I mean, that's my thought. Now, again, this is a,
Or he could put the warrants at the detention center, which he's over, and they monitor it themselves and save 25,000.
I'm sure that Mr. Arant would love to remove those warrants from his establishment, because I'm sure that 25,000 don't come close to covering what it
That's
costs.
a lot of work. It is a lot of work on them.
And that's coming on a little bit later in this budget, so
Yep,
keep that in mind.
yeah. Because they've actually just went through a big audit over there. Okay, so the next page is 28, and this is the detention center. Now, this one, I guess we kind of need to think about, do we want to go ahead and increase some of this stuff? Because some of this possibly could go down with the solicitor and public defender if what we're funding for them. For instance, the very first one is your doctors and lawyers, engineers. They're requesting for it to be increased to $260,000. Now, I've already increased it to 3% for the Southern Health. They always go about 3% each year. So I've already incorporated that. But with, every month that we end up having to pay a supplement because it's over the amount of the 120 that we have booked on there. But they're asking for it to go on up to 260,000, which is $40,000 more.
How much are we having to supplement per month?
About $3,000 to $4,000. But now, we've just redone the contract in November, and we increased it to the 120, so we shouldn't have to do that much.
We're
You
gonna
know,
pay it either way, right?
exactly. It's gonna be same, it can be the same line like gasoline. We're gonna have to pay it anyway, because,
Proposed at 220. Based on the contract
yes, sir.
I say stay with the 220, in my opinion.
Okay,
Plus, we're hoping that the solicitor and
That
the
is-
judge is gonna help.
exactly, so,
We're all in there.
yeah, you can look at this department, pretty much you can look at it two different ways, hoping that just leave it, and we're hoping that it's gonna come under, or do we want to be err on the safe side and increase, but,
If I may say, when you're doing a budget, as you stated, you can have money set aside for line item. If you don't spend it, it's still a saving. In my humble opinion, it's better to have actual numbers there. And if you don't need it, you don't have it. 'Cause I'm more concerned about going low in the end of the year, we don't have a surplus. You need to know where you're at. It's not gonna hurt to put that number there. And again, you said we're gonna pay it anyway, so if we don't need it, you don't have to have it, but at least you got a more accurate number of what it should be. We can't base off the fact that what we agree with solicitor, that may or may not happen. That's on a trial thing. So it makes sense to put the actual number there.
If you put it in the budget, and it shows a surplus when it gets close to the end of their fiscal year,
Right.
they could potentially spend that somewhere else instead of us keeping the savings.
See, I didn't know that. That's education. What you saying, if we place it, they could spend it regardless,
Correct.
but go back down to the beginning.
The last week they can spend it.
Yeah.
Go back to the original.
Yeah, you can look at the expenditures on the last 30 days before the end of the fiscal year, and you can see where they was a little bit fluffy.
I stand correct. Go back.
That's why I try to budget, get it to budget as close as I can get it.
Okay. I'm learning.
And just the utilities line item, now I've increased it $20,000 because from what I seen from last year to this year, it needs to be at 170. But now they're requesting for it to be 250,000.
We're gonna pay it either way, right?
Right.
You feel good at 170?
Yes, sir.
Keep it there.
Good enough for me.
And then the same thing with the custodial, I think 1,000 is fine, because we noticed that there was 2 different vendors last year that had actually done some of the fire ants, and Heather, she discovered that, and she's already spoke to them about that, so. The general supplies, they're requesting for it to go up to 18,000 from 12,500.
What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, you know,
I see you stayed with 12.5 proposed.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that's sufficient.
Okay.
Good enough for me.
Good.
And then the food, the same thing, you know, scenario, I think that we would go in alignment with the Southern Health. The food cost, I mean, we're gonna pay it regardless, because they're gonna eat over there, you know.
Right.
So I've actually incorporated the 5% increase
Okay.
because the cost is going up. We got a invoice, or not an invoice, a letter from them saying that, you know, they are raising theirs, so I incorporated that in there. But now they are requesting for it to go up to 341, but I think it's simply because of, you know, it going over this past year.
Right.
But like you said, we're gonna pay it no matter what.
So you're comfortable still staying at 269,605?
Yep, yep.
And hopefully we'll have.
I'm hoping that it's not gonna be that with this, if we incorporate this with the solicitor and public defender.
But before we leave that, I wanted to ask, the very last item, juvenile holding, some of you probably noticed in your Friday report, there's legislation about that. I think it's virtually guaranteed that that number is going to increase.
Yes.
So I don't know if you want to do anything with that, but I think it's certainly going to increase and probably increase substantially.
What would be your suggestion?
I mean, I would probably increase it 50% to probably 30. 'Cause I mean, now the cost per day is what, $50? And they're talking about going to somewhere around 200.
And I ran numbers on that from last year, and if it would have been that amount, I think we would end up paying like $25,000, because we didn't deplete all of it the last couple years. So I had went in and I ran numbers. I said, okay, if this would have happened last year, what would our budget have been? And it would have been like $25,000. So that's why I was gonna tell you, I would, you know, if you want to, I would increase it some, but yeah, they're looking at, and I think it's gonna pretty much happen, it's gonna go up.
You good with 20, or you think we need to add 5 to it, Michelle?
I would do at least 5, yeah.
Is that the same criteria? If it's there, they can spend it at the end of the year?
There, and, you know, and that way you'll be you'll have it increased.
That'll work.
Okay.
Okay, so 25,000 for
Yes, sir, if y'all are okay with that. Okay, so on page 29, let Mr. Price get caught up. Okay, so pretty much on page 29, and you'll see that, you know, that he has not asked for anything. The only thing he's requesting is if he could take, if you remember, we gave him that vehicle with ARPA money, he said that he could sell the other two. Well, now he's asking if we would, it would be okay to give the sheriff's office his old van for a SWAT team vehicle. Instead of selling it, he'd like to give it to the sheriff's office.
What are they using now?
I don't know if they even got one, or they're using a truck or what, I don't know for sure. I can find out some more information before you make a decision, because I don't know currently what they're using it for.
I mean, I'm not against it, I just think it would be nice to know what we're replacing
Okay,
over there, if that's what we're doing.
I can find that out.
Be curious to see what the, book value would be on the van anyway. I mean, if it's a $2,000 van or a $15,000 van.
Only thing I would speak up on a van, if by chance somewhere down the road, with everything we got going on with the public defender and the solicitor and the court, if we could somehow start up a work camp again, to utilize some sentenced inmates, that's where I always grab the vans, any kind of vans, because to take them out on. That would be the only thing I'd throw in the picture there.
Well,
Hopefully somewhere down the road, we can start that up
Passenger
again.
van, Steve? Is it a 15-passenger van?
I'm sure it's probably equipped both ways, but we've got old vans that we could put seats in that would, I would feel certain it would, we could equip it easily to do that. Now, hopefully, new family court judges and stuff like that, we can possibly crank something up in the near future.
yeah. So we might need this van ourselves.
That's
We
what
could,
I'll holler for a van in a heartbeat because of that very reason, and hopefully that's something we can start again. Because those guys are very beneficial to the road
Hang on
department.
to this one then.
I'd like to, let us investigate it some more.
Okay.
Investigate.
okay.
But I need y'all's help in helping push for this system to start back. I mean,
You got me.
You have my support 100%.
so,
And on page 30, I just want to bring to your attention that this is a new department. It's that slot that Karen was able to get through the opioid money, and this money is completely funded through opioid. But now, just keep in the back of your mind, if that ever goes away, then this is going to be a sheriff's office personnel that, they might ask for the county to fund or, to put back in their department. But I just wanted to bring it to your attention that this is a new one for this year. But I don't first, I think Karen will be trying to get it every year because it's been very helpful to her.
That's funded through the opioid litigation. I think there's another
You got about 15 years?
15
Yeah,
years or so left on that. So,
yeah, and like I said, I don't see her doing away with it because I think it's tremendous help to her. Okay, so our next, if you look on page 36, this is the telecommunicators, and they're requesting $500 more on the uniforms, requesting for it to increase to $3,500 versus the $3,000.
Sounds reasonable to me.
Okay. Then on page 38,
We'll go to 37.
37, we don't, there's really no changes in there.
I was wanting to ask for a change.
Okay, go ahead.
With the changes that we've made at the shelter, reducing the animal numbers, the very high likelihood that we're now gonna have the medicine here within weeks. I think there's an opportunity for us to reclaim a little bit of funds from this. That was my intention from the get-go by doing what we did. I'd like to look at pulling a little bit of their budget away to do something else with it, try to help move forward with some of these other projects that we're looking at.
Have you having a good relationship with them? Have you discussed that with any of them?
They know, they're very aware that that was the intent.
Okay.
But we hadn't had, in-depth conversations, but that was, we spoke with the,
Doors open.
we spoke with Teresa then, and she knew that that's what we were trying to accomplish, and she said if we could get those numbers down and help her, that she could cut her staff back, some as a way. Am I right? That's what she had talked about, so, you know, if we can, if we took one of our staff members' salaries away, what would that do?
Well, 31, yeah, probably about 50.
Around 50?
50.
50,000?
Hmm?
You said 50,000?
Mm-hmm. Between salary and fringe, you looking around 50,000.
Now you have a staff member out of a job, though.
I think they've already lost a staff member because of the changes.
We
They're
go quite a-
just not
we-
replacing them.
We go through quite a few over there, so. If there's a vacancy, I mean, it would be easy
Easy.
to pull off.
Y'all wanna investigate that a little bit more as a possibility to
We can
see?
talk with her and see and bring back something at the next
If you
one.
do it, I would like for you to also try to get that staff member job somewhere else within the county.
I think they're already gone.
Oh, gone from the
Yeah,
county?
I think we've
Yeah.
got an opening right now.
Well, that's all that then. I just hate to see people lose their job, that's all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How much you gonna cut it, Ethan?
50.
50,000? All right.
So if do we wanna go ahead and just write that down, cut it 50? If long as if they've already got the opening and with the investigation?
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
And just tell her, you know, that not to fund that, not to advertise or fund.
I don't wanna hurt them. That was part of the discussion, the agreement on us trying to work through that, so I'd like to hold up that end of the deal also.
Sounds good.
So that's salary and benefit.
Yes, ma'am.
50,000.
Okay,
Like
on,
you said, if we don't do it, then they'll find a reason to spend it somewhere.
Correct.
We'd rather spend the money somewhere else.
on page 38, emergency preparedness.
Hey, 38?
Yes, sir. You know, like other departments, he's requesting a COLA increase, and he's requesting his travel and training to be increased $500 from $2,000 to $2,500. And then he's actually requesting his risk management. He's saying that, you know, we can decrease that to the 15,000 versus the 18.2. So that'd be good.
And that more than covers his increase in.
Exactly. So I thought that was, yeah, that's pretty good.
Good.
That's what you call balanced request, isn't it, Ms. Burns?
That's a win-win-win.
Most people don't make enough money anyway. Working 9
Okay, so if you look on the next page, page 39, this is actually taking, me showing you taking the landfill out of the general fund. And if you kind of hold your finger there and flip back to page 48, and this is me putting it into its own fund. Now, the only thing that has changed in the increase in expenditures is we have increased the disposal cost because we felt like, you know, that would go up. Because, you know, more people bring it in. But everything else is pretty much remained the same. And it's estimating 15,150 partials on the unincorporated, and then at $47, and then 5,081 partials in town, $20. Because in town residents are already being charged through their town millage. So that's why, but we know that, that at some given time during the year, that they will be bringing items, because Tim used himself as an example. He said, I know that I would be using the landfill, at some time or another.
I live in town in Chesterfield. I use it a couple times a year, just clean out the garage or something. So they get me for $20 to $40 a year regardless. So it makes perfect sense to me.
But then, I carried it a step further, and I says, okay, so the end effect, how's this gonna affect our taxpayers? And I done my bill again, of course, I told you it's already going to go up like $23 because of the reassessment. And then I said, okay, so then I'm gonna charge myself a $47 fee, so my taxes would go up, $70.27 next year with those two items. So then we kind of tossed around the idea, maybe doing a split thing, don't do as much, but still do, transfer, like the road department, transfer some from the general fund and, fund part of it through the fee and then fund the rest of it through the general fund. So I haven't got a scenario of that on paper yet, but, I just wanted to kind of toss around the idea that what y'all were feeling.
Well, this is gonna be a little bit unorthodox, but, because we're not going line item by line item, but since we brought that up, I got a major concern with the way we're handling the NETC money that we're collecting for NETC that we're not mandated to do. And, with the things they've had going on down there, I don't think we really need to be in the business of collecting money for NETC through taxes, just to give to them. There's a lot of concern statewide with things they got going on. So,
And
it would be a reduction to the taxpayers, and they wouldn't be forced to be paying money to be squandered, or however
Yeah.
you want to describe what's going on at NETC.
And then speaking of that, I've already had other council members mention to me, Michelle, exactly how much do we pay them? So I had already done some research because I felt like it may come up at this meeting too, because like I said, I've had a couple of them mention it to me. We give them roughly around $375,000. So I said, okay, we'll look at, half of that would be like $187,000. If you cut, half, instead of doing away with it all, do half or either do it all,
So basically, if we, just theoretically speaking, if we looked at, I'm good with cutting it all off myself, and then if they have something through workforce development that we need to fund, that would specifically benefit economic development, then we could do that as needed basis or as seen basis. That would be my first choice, but if a compromise is to take half away, then we could actually utilize $180,000 to help supplement this new trash situation that we're looking at, where we could actually reduce, instead of from $47 for the residents in the county and $20 for municipalities, we could go $35 in the county and $15 in the municipalities to help offset some of that. I think we got to take a stand for, the taxpayers as far as what's going on in NETC.
Yep.
Well, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
How do we go about collecting money for NETC? How's that happen?
When you get the answer to that, you let me know.
How do we know?
Tax bill, right?
Yeah.
How do we go about collecting
Yeah,
money from them?
it's through your tax bill, and it goes in the treasurer's office. Every month, they'll segregate what amount goes to NETC.
And that was approved by the county council,
Yeah, we've been doing that for,
But it's
Before I
not
ever came.
mandated.
not mandated.
It's not law.
yeah, it's not mandated.
Why'd they do it then?
Years ago, years ago,
Kind gesture.
they came before council and to ask for funding to help with their operational costs. And he actually came to, I know about 7 or 8 years ago again, but they didn't increase it then. But it goes towards, what's always been mentioned to me is this goes towards their operational cost at NETC.
Really, when I asked, I had a 2-hour meeting with Andy Ingram, and he said the only thing that they gonna come back and ask the county for is dealing with a Kirkland position up there in McBee, when they added that parking lot on, they wanted us to cover some of that, which came up to about $35,000, $40,000. But that's not now, but all that stuff they got going on, they get millions of dollars of grant money. Even all they would, I knew that anyway, because I served on that committee for a long time. I'm with Ethan on this. I don't think we need to collect taxes from them. $375,000 not gonna matter to NETC. I can promise you that, they got money. That guy go to Washington DC, he got connected with somebody up there that knows somebody, cause he know how to get that money. I applaud Dr. Wagner for that, but he know how to get that money. But they doing some stuff over there, man.
They are.
What's going on over there? I mean, I'm in the dark on that a little bit.
Well, he's made the high schools upset, because they don't believe that the route he going is beneficial to the kids. And the numbers that he's showing on his billboard and the paper he give out to everybody is not the same number to high school. So they completely in a different direction, but the kids gotta go there. And, but he getting the money. I wish y'all could see, I'm gonna bring you that paper. I got it at the house. They got the money. $375,000 ain't gonna matter. So let's keep our money.
I mean, it would
Well,
help.
question about the convenience
Cut
center.
them all the way.
What advantage is there to separating
it
it
off.
from general fund to?
Well, you're actually collecting a fee then. It's not within the county, so it's, it's better accounting practice. And plus, whenever you have a segregated fee, you want to keep it separate, just like the road department. How it's in its own department.
It won't be,
Everything else is gonna be the same?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I mean, it's the same, in the principal thing, it's the same, except on paper, it's just in a different fee, where at any given time, if, Michelle, I want to see just what this is going to expend, you've got it separated, and it's, it's cleaner, it's more, you can tell.
it's a it would be a
Yeah.
flat fee instead of the millage.
Yeah.
Showing
You'll-
on the millage.
You'll see on the tax bill, convenience center fee, and whatever amount it is, just,
And so there wouldn't be collection at the convenience center?
no, ma'am, that's right, that's right.
But we're still having Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, 2 people per whatever. That's not changing.
No, ma'am,
Nothing's changing,
No.
other than we won't take cash at the convenience
Yes.
center.
Close every time we go there.
Yep,
yes.
you can just pull up there and dump it where it needs to be.
And I may be wrong on this, but I think at some point somebody checked, and we are one of the very few counties that doesn't have a solid waste fee, convenience center fee, whatever you want to call it. And I think the way that it's being done, where you're differentiating between the towns, like for example, me, I live in Sherrall, I pay for trash collection in Sherrall, but like Mr. Chairman said, there's times during the year when we go to the convenience center to take something that we can't put in our trash can, and we have to pay. So I think it'll be really a net, I don't think it's going to be a true 100% increase, whatever the amount of the fee is. Because people who live out in the county are going to the convenience center now, they're paying for private trash collection. So, but as far as segregating it out, I think that's the proper way to do it, because it is a fee, and you're going to need to be able to show exactly what that fee is used for, and that it's benefiting the people that are paying it in a way that's different from the general public.
I think it also gives us an opportunity to lean on law enforcement, to have more litter enforcement. And I think the scenario that has been since the beginning of time, I believe, is you have a 16-year-old child and you tell them to take the trash off, and you give them $10. And instead of taking the trash to the dump and spending part of that $10, they go buy them whatever they want with the $10 and throw the trash off on the dirt road. Well, then when you go out there and figure out that the kid threw the trash on the dirt road, it's a kid, little Johnny's daddy, and you want to look out for him, you try to, you don't end up prosecuting anybody or getting anything out of it. But this way you keep all that money out of it, and then whoever gets caught littering, they can get punished to the fullest. I think that's something we need to work with law enforcement and the magistrate's office.
I think that's great if you have information in a bag that you can identify. But the most litter that I see It's not bags of trash, it's beer bottles
Yeah.
and cups
True.
and wrappers from sandwiches and stuff like that.
Junk.
This is a good idea for record-keeping purposes. How much impact it's gonna have on litter as a whole remains to be seen, in my opinion.
We agreed in our last meeting, Mr. Eubank gonna work on it, possibility of putting up some littering signs throughout the county. That'll be a big help.
I think enforcement of the laws we have on the books is paramount for this being a success. I like the numbers, I like the way it cleans it up. And I think from the citizens of the county, I think it's just easier. You don't have to carry cash to the convenience center. I asked a few people that live in the county that I know, I said, hey, they go to the convenience center occasionally. What would you prefer? And every one of them came back and said, I'd rather have a flat fee on my tax bill. And I was a little bit shocked. They said, because I never know what it's gonna cost me when I go, based if I've got this many bags or that many bags. One of the things I see in the county that's troublesome to me that I'm not sure this is going to fix, and it very well may help it. If it helps it at all, it's worth it, but it's the tires piled beside the road. It's somebody threw a couch or a mattress out. I have bottles in my front ditch every week I get up, and it drives me crazy. I don't know why they feel like they have to throw them out right before they get to the stoplight, but apparently that's the thing to do. I don't think it's gonna fix that. You can't change that heart. I'm not sure you can change the heart of somebody that's willing to take 10 bags of trash and an old mattress and throw it down a dirt road. But at least the ones that have to drive by the convenience center to get to that dirt road, maybe they'll stop there now since it doesn't cost them at the point of, drop off. So if we can do that, we're at least making headway. And from a money standpoint, I think it washes out.
I think it gives us,
Like Mr. Ford said, it gives leverage to law enforcement. If they caught at that point, then you can lay it to them, because it's free now.
I think we should have had that leverage all along, regardless of what it
I agree.
costs. You should lock them up, fine them, whatever you gotta do. I don't wanna lock anybody up for that right now, because we're trying to get people out of jail, but we can surely be writing
I'll
fines.
agree there.
And I think the matrix has got something good that we're starting, they're gonna start using the community service. So we actually spoke to John Davis about that, and we're starting that now. So we've given them some roads and stuff for him to assign that for community service, and we're also, that's exactly right.
Yes.
And we're gonna try to start, the Palmetto Pride, we're gonna try to start keeping it going with the big items. We're fixing to deplete the rest of that grant money with the reliable tree service to pick up some of that bulk. And I told Courtney to check and see if we could get that renewed after we deplete this money. And I'd like to try to keep that going.
So we are gonna investigate the NETC
Yes.
using some of that money.
Yes, I'm gonna go back. So then on page 40, on Veterans Affairs, she's pretty much just requesting, like everybody else, a COLA increase. And on Family Court, the same thing as Clerk of Court, she was requesting 30%. If you want, we probably don't even have an hour. Not an hour. Y'all wanna take it?
I'm good with that. Take a bathroom break.
Yep, take a 5-minute break.
Where were we, Ms. Stanley?
Okay, so we, on page 42, this is the library, and they didn't ask for anything other than, like COLA increases. And so economic development's on page 43. Hers is the COLA, and as you can see, there's $55,000 right there that we took off the budget because of the ARPA money, because we got those vehicles. I was just going to point that out to you again. Now, the industry appreciation, they're asking to increase that $2,000 from $4,000 to $6,000 to kind of, I guess, bring in more for the industry appreciation. So they've noticed that, because, we haven't increased that in forever. And I think they're trying to get that started back and bring in these industries and have a nice event. And with the inflation of cost, that's their reason of wanting to increase that.
They've already got a pretty substantial, budget
Yeah.
over there. I don't know that, they can't already afford that
And they-
$2,000 themselves.
And they do get donations, they send out letters to get donations. So, we've always funded it because of all the donations they get.
And I appreciate that that's the only thing they asked for, but I really believe that out of
Pretty neat.
$1.2 million, they can afford $2,000.
I thought you was dropping it.
Ms. Stanley, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm okay with leaving it because like I said, they do get donations
How
and
much
they get
in
general.
donation, do you know?
Sir?
Do you know how much they get in donation?
Oh, my God. I would, they, eight to 10,000 is,
A year?
mm,
Who's giving them that?
the industry.
Industries.
And this,
Like Alliance Engineers.
We'll give it right back to 'em?
Different ones, yeah.
Ms. Michelle, we
Yes, sir.
did agree to take off all that 375 for NETC, right?
yes,
Say that.
he's wanting to know if we agreed to take off all the NETC. Because I would like to run, what I would like to do is run you new numbers on that convenience center to show you, how much it's going to benefit and help our citizens.
Okay.
Now, if we get back to the restricted funds, which is starting on page 45, this is the road department. And this is those two truck drivers, which is basically on the salaries, it's $76,440, but then you got the 5% of COLA increase incorporated in there too. And just to refresh your memory on that, CTC said that because they're not going to want to pave that many roads anymore, that they would give us an abundant amount of gravel because they could give us more gravel and cheaper than paving a road.
Yeah, we already got the trucks, right?
Exactly.
We already got the trucks, and the only thing we got to do is put drivers in them, and we're gonna be the beneficiary of all the rock them trucks can haul. It won't cost us nothing but fuel, right?
Yep, and then that's more roads that we're getting fixed.
What's that?
No more transportation costs on the gravel other than salaries.
That's correct.
That's right.
Like that.
That's a no-brainer.
Yep.
Agreed.
I thought that was a good idea. Now, if you look at the bottom, the road department's informed us that the material cost for the driveways is basically costing us now like $638. Well, see, we're only charging $500 to put in a driveway for someone. So we want to ask council, do y'all want to entertain the idea of increasing that charge?
Why wouldn't we?
That's what it costs us.
You're just recouping your money, I mean.
Yeah.
Not making any money.
You can't get,
You're going in the hole.
you can't get a private company to come put a driveway in for
Exactly.
$750.
Yeah. So now, would you
Type of
want,
loans.
So would you want to round it off to like at 700? I mean,
I mean,
Makes sense.
The material cost is $638?
material cost is $638.
How
You
can
can
we do
do
it for
it,
less than $800? I mean, really, by the time we pay we got a guy to drive over there, got to do the
Backhoe,
work.
fuel.
Yeah,
I mean, we're just covering
I'm,
costs.
I'm good with that.
I agree with that.
And that,
We're covering our costs.
yes.
That's all it's about.
And then you won't have to, if you go ahead and go up a little bit more than what the actual cost is now, you're not gonna have to revisit this in another year, because you know those costs are gonna continue to go up.
I mean, there's no, the alternative is hiring somebody to do it themselves, a private company, and they're gonna come out and charge you $3,500.
800 is good.
So I'm okay with 800.
800's fine with me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's too cheap myself, but,
Keep it at 800, because everybody can pay that.
well, I'm good with that.
Understand, as long as your recommendation is that we'll cover ours.
Yes, sir.
We're not profiting, we're just trying to.
That's
Yes,
correct.
sir.
That's the BAM, so to speak.
I agree.
Okay, so the last, okay, E911. He's requesting a COLA increase, but he's also come to us last week, and it's not in his budget because it's just now starting to surface and really getting intense over there. I know some of you are aware of at MACB, how many calls, they've got calls coming in left and right. And then they also got where they're doing a lot more license checks. So then that's calls coming in. But he's asking us if we would fund an assistant TAC officer, because E911, there's only one personnel that works there. D is the only person that works for E911. So she's having to man and do a lot of that and help with the telecommunicators doing all that. So he said if council would fund an assistant TAC officer, and he actually named it assistant TAC / assistant supervisor at E911, that would help them out graciously.
Do the towns pay us to use service?
We tried.
That's a great question.
I mean, they should be paying us if we're gonna answer their calls, right? I mean, that's the way the private sector works anyway.
Right now, we have from for Chesterfield, McBee, every 911 call goes through our system. Now, say if it's law enforcement, it gets switched over to Pageland or Sherrall or whatever. But if you pick up the phone and call 911, it comes through that system.
Well, we're liable too if there's a mistake.
That's correct.
So there's a lot of liability associated with that. Also, there's a lot of costs associated with that. So we should, I don't know why we don't bill people for time. I mean, that's the biggest sham there's ever been if you don't make people pay their way.
So we had discussed, last year? It was like 12.5 for MACB, 12.5 for Chesterfield.
That was
and
under
then
the warrant.
The
so
warrant
That
stuff.
fell under the
Yeah.
warrant, so
You mean calls?
that was just to
Yeah,
handle the
that was just to
warrants.
handle the warrants of the calls coming in for that.
So, I mean, Brandon's on to it, and we've already discussed it, but.
I haven't heard about that, but I just was
But
curious.
We had.
when MACB decided they wanted to start their own police department again, we all knew and had the discussion that it's gonna cause a lot of increased call volume on our employees over there. Well, now we're seeing the residual effects of what it is doing, and obviously they got some major issues in MACB by doing whatever they're doing, trying to fund a task force down there for traffic violations. But it's Chad, I went over there and talked to Chad and them and spent a little time over there, and they're absolutely drowning.
Yeah.
I talked with him too.
Yeah, I mean, they're drowning over
They're
there.
drowning.
I mean, he said, I would love to have one more telecommunicator and this, he said, but hey, if I can just get this assistant, I'd be happy,
So
but,
but what you're telling me, Michelle, is because of the amount of calls, they want us to fund more personnel without them paying a nickel. Is that what you're saying?
That's it. I mean,
That's what it boils down to, yeah.
That's what our staff's having to ask for additional
Yeah.
help because of
Because
Because
the
of the-
towns decided to run more traffic
the
stops,
burden it's put on us.
more whatever.
that's the bottom line.
So why wouldn't every town, I mean, if that was the case, I'd run as many traffic stops as I could, because I didn't have to answer the calls anyway, besides having police do.
It's running a business with no overhead.
Exactly. It's 100% it. I mean, I may be missing something here, but.
No, you 100% on point.
I mean, it's put a huge burden on,
So he's burdened because of another police department that he's not even responsible for it, but he's having to take their calls.
So what do you need, two more employees?
I think what he needs is charge the towns.
Until we get to that point, he need help now, so what we gonna do? He need help.
I'm with you on that, Johnny, he needs help, for sure.
I think he's skeptical about actually asking us for the part-time tac and an additional person. But I believe with what I've seen myself over there, I think Todd's been over there, you've talked to them. They drowned, and I think if there's a way we can fund them an extra dispatcher, but in return, I think we fixing to have a real conversation with McBee about what they got going on. Because I think it's actually affecting, well, I know it's affecting us, you know, I think Chad will speak
yeah. 'Cause see,
candidly about it.
yeah, Dee, she's salaried, but she's putting in 60 or plus hours a week.
Because he,
I mean, a pay period.
What's her salary?
Huh?
Do you know her salary off the top of your head? Is that
50.
private or?
I think it's 55.
well, I mean, I think they even having to call, like, they're not getting a heads up when, let's say, they put on a roadblock and they're having to call somebody in on their day off because all of a sudden they're running all these name and date of births because they decided to put up a little checkpoint. And so that we're having to call people in on their day off and pay them overtime, or D's having to come in on salary and work 3 or 4 hours to run all these name and date of births because they decided they want to make some more money.
Plus the liability associated with it. If you mess the call up or something, I don't know if the county's ever been sued for that, but you certainly could be. Right? But we're not collecting any money for any risk that we're taking on.
The only money we're collecting is like from the sheriff's office for that warrants. That's the only.
Chad need the help, so he don't quit, cause he's burdened down.
Yeah.
We can help him, let's help him.
Is it unreasonable to give him his tac and one other to see if
help him
we can
out.
fund it?
I don't believe so, personally. I mean,
And then we'll
is
just
there-
have to
is there
address it.
anything that we're missing here why we wouldn't?
Let us talk to Chad and see just what is happening and let us get some closer numbers and we'll have it at the second meeting. And see what, and actually ask other counties, you know, what they are doing for the town, municipalities and stuff. See if there's a
How we can go
charge.
about recouping some of this expense.
Would it be unreasonable to charge them on a per call basis? Should be easy to track that, right? I mean,
Or is there a better way
I
to do
think if
that?
you start that, you get back into like a safety issue. They not wanting to call in because they're gonna get charged and it could create a problem for
So would
them.
you charge them a flat rate?
For a
Flat
safety
rate
issue, yes. I think you're looking more of a flat rate than,
they help us fund more people to answer their phone calls.
Is
Now, the prob-
Magby the only municipality that's an issue?
I think,
kinda
It's
my
the main
question.
one.
Because if we charge one, we've got to charge them all.
I'd charge
well, I
them.
think the issue is it wasn't any issue to manage when it was just, you know, Chesterfield PD, with the volume that they have, you know, because we do all of theirs, but Pageland has their own in-house to talk back and forth to their officers. Sherrall has their own in-house to talk back and forth to their officers, and they're actually answering non-emergency calls themselves also. You know, if you call the non-emergency line in those towns, they're getting that call. So it wasn't town of Chesterfield, it hadn't been the issue, but now McBee, since they writing 1,500 tickets a month, it's created a major problem. I mean,
So
you,
how would you go about recouping that? Just look at McBee and Chesterfield?
Amount of calls, you'd have to do it somehow, based on the amount of calls.
I think
Chad could probably help us.
yeah.
coming
He
up
could
with
run a
something.
report.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think we need to punish anybody, but I think if it's causing our people to be overwhelmed and us to have to fund more things because of what they're doing, they're gonna have to ante up.
this kind of reminds me of the detention center cost, which I was, is there any reason that you see that this could come back and be troublesome? Because it seemed like
That's
we
what I
had.
was gonna say, I mean, and I had made a note here, with the detention center, you can't do that.
Right.
Unless it's
It's and that
specifically
just
a
cost
town.
us money, we have to like it.
Right.
Explain that to me, Heath.
There was at one point, there was a talk of charging towns for.
Keeping their people.
For inmates, and the way the law is, you can only do that if it's a town offense. Or a
General sessions.
Municipal court level offense, which is gonna be
Very few.
inmates.
So if it's a major,
If it's a general sessions offense, then you can't charge the town for housing the inmate.
It just keeps them from bringing people in that for driving under suspension, clogging up the system just because they can.
I don't know if this would be the same or not. I think that's a good question, and one that I would need to research.
Well, I mean, it's either that or do you go to them and say, hey, you're gonna have to fund thing the way Pageland and Sherrall do and have your own in-house that, you know, we'll catch all the 911s and, you got somebody to run the name and date of birth
Traffic
and
stops, yeah.
driver's license and all that for your own traffic stops.
because you're not collecting any money off these tickets they're writing, right?
No,
They keep all the money, correct?
them in the state.
A lot of money.
They bragged about they collected $1 million, off of traffic tickets.
Well, they got the money then.
But they said they had to give most of it away to the state. That's what they're upset about. They didn't get to keep all of it.
They get 1/3 of $350.
Exactly.
I think Chad can give us some guidance.
Okay.
They drowning over there.
See what Chad really needs.
Yeah.
Move on from there, okay.
Okay,
People gonna quit. Turnover's high.
And I don't want him to quit, but he the key to that thing.
okay, so the last one is on page 50, and this is our capital equipment. And as you remember, we were able to purchase a bush cutter, trucks, 5 sheriff vehicles, a motor grader, and a bush cutter with the ARPA money. So you see I've got highlighted in kind of like the pinkish orange, or pinkish color, rose color. The bush cutter and the trucks, we will not need that. We won't need to do that lease this year because we already have 4 new trucks and the bush cutter, so that $60,000 payment will go away. Now, we do have the sheriff fleet coming up this year, and, you know, we've kept their lease amount for $830,000 for the last couple of years. And that has been able to fund close to like 20 vehicles. Well, this year, because I knew that was coming, so council approved for us to get 5 new vehicles to go along with this, and they should be coming in. He got 5 Tahoes that should be coming in January 26. So we jumped ahead of the ball game and said, hey, we know that they're not going to be able to get 20 vehicles with the $830,000, so that's why we use some of our ARPA money to help him out with that. But we do know that, you know, that the vehicles, the cost has increased. Now, my question to the committee is, do we want to kind of leave this millage at the same, and because of, you know, the growth? I know we discussed this a little bit last year. Leave that money in there and leave it at the same millage, because we know that all this other equipment that's coming up in the next year is going to be more. So we shouldn't have to raise the millage at that point.
My personal belief is I think that we would be shooting ourselves in the foot if we didn't leave it the way it is and bank up a little bit of that money in the
Yes, sir.
capital equipment. Because we're gonna need it.
Exactly.
We're gonna be at a deficit.
I'm glad to hear y'all say that.
People are already used to paying it, so it won't be no burden on them.
It's not an increase, and that's the big thing, if you avoid an increase.
Do we have on the capital equipment side, how much equipment do we have that we can liquidate because of the replacements that we made with the ARPA money?
Yep. Now, we're going to end up keeping the roll-off, right? Because
Right now, until we see
of this,
what this is gonna do to us. We'll keep that, but then we've got some stuff that we need to surplus.
Yeah, I think that would be.
Don't we have some vehicles that the sheriff and them not using yet, that you say y'all bought way back?
There's 5, they should be in January of '26. So there's 5 of those Tahoes that will already be ahead of the curve on those.
What about the vehicle that you said that you wasn't gonna give them yet?
That's the.
That's the.
That's them, okay.
yeah. Now, I can go ahead and tell you to put a thought in your mind, because as we get this new fleet in, they're gonna be selling the old, so I'm gonna go ahead and put it in your mind, so you can be thinking about what you want to do with that money. Because I'm gonna tell you what they're gonna want to do, they're gonna want to, if they collect all this, they're gonna want to get another vehicle. So that's a decision that y'all, the council's gonna have to be faced with, is once they start selling,
I made it clear with doing what you did with the ARPA money, that all funds that's sold comes back to the general fund.
Okay.
I think we need to start planning for the increase. I mean, 20 vehicles and 800, what'd you say?
30,000.
That's not, I mean,
That's
that's
probably
not
gonna be
reasonable
like
anymore. We've
1.1,
got to,
1.2.
That's 40,000 a vehicle, right? 800 over 20.
Yep.
what is the state contract on the ones they're getting now, like 45?
Yeah.
I think by the time you upfit them, you got 55 to 60 in them apiece.
Why they drive Tahoes? I'm just curious. Is there a reason for that?
That's the only thing they could get, at that time, that's the only thing they could get, compared to, what was it, Interceptors, is that? the other
Yeah, that's
thing?
what, and then they had even was looking at trucks, but they were, it was between those and the trucks, and they were cheaper than the trucks.
Yeah, the Tahoes were actually, you would think it'd be otherwise.
Than a car?
But they were actually cheaper. The only thing was the fuel, efficiency was gonna be a little bit different. But even I spoke up and said, you know, when you got, people that's working law enforcement in a car for 12 hours a day, the comfortability,
The Tahoe.
makes a lot of difference.
And if you're not 25 years old and you tried to drive around for an hour in a Charger and jump out in a hurry and go chase somebody, and then slide out of a Tahoe and go chase somebody, that's a different world.
Yep.
That's a safer vehicle.
I would think that, yeah, it is true.
If you're having to hop in and out
Makes sense.
with a rifle slung on you or
I
something.
did, mention to Spence, one day last week. I asked him how the Tahoes were holding up, and he said all in all, they've done really, really well. They've had some issues with the brakes, but they said Travis had upgraded the brakes. But all in all, he said they have done well compared to Chargers and Durangos that they had before.
How about body work and things? I would imagine it's been a little better with the Tahoes, even if it's just deer strikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if we
Something
can keep,
sitting on fire in the air.
Yeah.
if we can keep, deputies from hitting light poles in parking lots in the middle of the night, just,
Exactly.
you know, unreasonably,
Fair.
uh,
The only other two things that I have that's not in here, well, actually, on the front page, I've got verbiage about, increasing, whenever we have our employees go to their classes, they have their per diem, which is right now, they will get reimbursed. This is if the breakfast and lunch and dinner is not provided for them at the conference. And if it's overnight stay, the breakfast, they get $8, lunch $12, and dinner's $15. We wanted to propose to you to look at maybe increasing that to like $20 or $25.
Yeah, you can't buy no breakfast for $8.
No,
I think my recommendation is you make it 10, 15, and 25.
yeah. We were thinking maybe increase, let's see, breakfast, okay, yeah, recommend increase lunch to 15 and dinner to 25.
Breakfast is higher than lunch. You have a breakfast for $20.
Yeah,
Lunch.
You don't have to use it, it just has it available.
exactly. And we always require them to give the receipts too. We don't just go off,
So what's our recommendation, Brother Smallwood? 20, 25, 35?
lunch to, yeah,
Default to staff on this one.
yeah, lunch to 15 and then dinner to 25.
You think 8's enough for breakfast?
And then we could keep breakfast at 8, so that's gonna be $48.
you just say 50 and roll on.
Yeah, then we could increase, breakfast to 10, whatever.
At least 10.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
Just a nice round number.
And what about mileage? That's the same?
it's by the IRS per diem, and right now it's like 70 cents. But now if they have a company vehicle, they don't get the mileage. And the only other thing is building codes, he hasn't given it to me yet, but he was looking at, trying to increase a couple of his fees. That's, money coming in to us.
More coming in,
Yeah.
so.
So I'll have that for you for the next, meeting. And then if you want to look over the COLA increases, it's the page with the 4 different blocks, the yellow and orange lines on it. like I said, in this budget, I have the 5% across the board. And this isn't elected officials, but it is appointed officials. But it doesn't include elected officials. The other scenarios would be, the first one is 0 to 50,000, 7% increase, 50,000 a dollar and up will be 5% increase. And then if you look at the bottom, that's 882,000, that will be the total salary and fringe. Then the option 2 would be up to 50,000, 5%, 50,000 a dollar and up with 3%. And then, like I said, the option 3 is what I've got incorporated in the budget at 5% across the board. Then I've done one more that was kind of like, okay, let's look at it a little bit at a different salary range. It would be up to 40,000, and that's a 7% increase, and then 40,000 a dollar and up a 5% increase. So I just wanted to give you kind of like, you know, 4, and this isn't the only scenarios that I can do. You know, you make a recommendation on anything, and I can run a scenario on anything for you, but these are just, you know, some that we were looking at this year to do.
What would be your recommendation?
Well, I'll tell you, the main reason I went with 5% across the board, because that's pretty much the middle,
Okay.
and that catches everybody. Pretty much, you know, it won't be getting some on higher than the higher paid employees. It just pretty much keeps everybody at a more level, you know, increase.
I like that.
And in the past, what we've tried to do is get the low-level people up. But what we don't want to do is get the low-level people up where the,
Exactly, and I think that's right, Ms. Hattie, and that's one good thing about doing that across the board. Because we have,
low-level people, I mean the lowest salary.
yes, ma'am.
Not low-level people.
Last year, our big step was to take the basement, right?
Yes.
And raise it to a
31.2.
That was a big step that we done last year, and it was wonderful. We spent a lot of money on getting those, you know, our base salary, you come in the door, you're gonna come in making $31.5, $15 an hour. But now with the increase this year, it'll be more, you know.
I like the 5% across the board. I think that it would be phenomenal if we could look at that 40 and under and 40 up, 7 and 5. I don't know if we can swing it financially, but I'd love to try to get some of those 31.2s up just a little bit more as well.
You can always get it 40 and under 7% and give the 40 and up 2%. You can work the numbers. Miss Michelle and Chairman Smallwood, this may not be the appropriate time to talk about this. If it's not, let me know. I'm concerned about our incoming attorney. Where we at on price on that?
We've got that in
We're in
executive
executive session to talk about it.
It's in executive session? Okay. All right, 'cause that, I'm concerned about that.
Are we better off to go, this is just, I'm just spitballing. Do we look at 5%, or if we like that 670 number as a whole, do we look at 7% for 40 and less and 4% for 40 and over? Do you think that
Say
would,
that one more time. What percentage did you say?
basically,
6 and 4 versus 7 and 5?
either 6 and 4 or 7 and 4?
74 is better. 7% for under 40. Yeah, 4% over.
7 and 4.
I like
Okay.
the 7 and 4.
Okay, I can run that scenario for next time. So you're saying 7% for the 40 and under?
Yes, ma'am.
And then 4% for the 40 and above?
I
Okay.
think that's given, I think 4% is still a good number, but
It is.
I really, I swear I'd like to see our lowest paid people get up a little bit more.
Okay,
You keep them. That's what you want to keep them here.
All right.
okay, I can do that.
I don't think there's as much of a risk as the 40 and below reaching that next level so that they're gonna come out very close to the person
Okay,
supervising them, for example.
I agree with that.
Yeah, $100,000 is 4%. They getting $4,000. Somebody under at 40,000 getting 2,800. that balance the scale a little bit. I agree with that.
Okay. All right, I can do that.
Do you have anything?
And I think that's all. Oh, one other thing, that I was looking at the Friday report this morning, and there, it's kind of like they've combined the boats for the 50% property tax reduction on the boats, and then they're talking about the bill cutting, taking away the motor bill on the boats. But it also says in here that the House has been has not been scheduled for a hearing. So please continue to talk to your representatives and ask them to oppose the bill due to the detrimental impact it will have on your county's finances and the burden it would place on other taxpayers. So I thought that was interesting, to point out to you that there's still, I think a lot of counties are fighting this because it's gonna hit us hard.
We're looking around, was it 80,000?
Yeah, around 80 and like 68. It's be about 150 total, because it's two different things going on. They're decreasing the value of the boat, and then they're also doing away with the motor bill. So it's like 80-something and then 60-something thousand.
I know it's strictly confidential.
I could go buy me
Yeah,
a lot in North Carolina and buy a boat, and the property tax would offset the cost of my lot. If I could rent it in North Carolina or Georgia.
I think that's why it's.
I mean, I don't own a boat, so Susan, you said you say that, but if I did own one, I'd be, I get it, but I also understand the burden on the county.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
money's gotta come from somewhere, so if not there, then where, right?
I mean, it's just like me, it's hitting me on both sides, you know. Yeah, as a taxpayer, I would love that, but then I sit here every day and see what it's gonna do to me on my budget.
How is it if you have a boat, let's say you live in Chesterfield, but you keep your boat in, I don't know, at Lake Watery? Is there any law saying where you have to register?
Well, right now is where it's registered, so like I pay it in Chesterfield County, but that's one of the things they were looking at doing. You pay it where it's housed. So now how are you gonna man that, you know?
In Columbia on Lake,
Yeah.
what is it, Lake Murray? You just leave it there. You don't own property, you just leave it there. You would have to have it registered.
Yeah, because see, just like ours stays at Santee all the time, but the Chesterfield County gets it instead of Berkeley County. But that's one of the things that they were talking about doing, is you paying property taxes where it's actually housed. So I would start paying it at Berkeley County versus Chesterfield County. So then what people is gonna start doing is they're gonna look and see which they're gonna pay less. So then it might be housed here versus there, but whoever, you know.
I can't talk. Before you think that's finalized or settled, is where it falls.
Well, heck, it could go all the way to September, Heath, before they,
I think it's coming.
yeah, I think they're gonna pass it. I really do. So that's one of the main reasons that I was, you know, praying that y'all would allow me at least to increase it 1 mil because of stuff like this. You know, and the low income and housing, I think I wrote, it is gonna affect us a little bit. But then, like, you know, there's one manufacturing that's like 45,000. So between these items that I know that I'm probably gonna be hit with, it's gonna be a little over 1 mil. So that's why I was wanting to at least for our millage to be that 91 mills. Because I know what we're fixing to be faced with. Okay.
Does the committee want to make a motion to approve the changes, all the changes that have been discussed to this point?
Yeah,
And
I'll make that motion to move forward with the changes discussed.
Motion by Mr. Second.
I second it.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Okay? Yep, so I'm ready to go.
There's a need to go into executive session. Mr. Ruffner, would you?
Yes, sir. That's pursuant to South Carolina Code Section 30-4-70, subsection A1. That is to discuss employment, appointment, compensation, promotion, demotion, discipline, or release of an employee, that being the county attorney. And as noted on the agenda, the committee may take action by voting upon this matter after exiting executive session.
Do I have a motion to enter executive session?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Ford, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. McClendon. All in favor? Aye, motion carries. We are now. We are now out of executive session. While in executive session, no motions were made, no votes were cast. Is there anything else we need to discuss today?
Well, would you like to entertain trying to schedule another meeting? I make all these changes and then,
How long? We need, what? Let's get the calendars out.
Well, Chair, you did an excellent job as chairman.
Yeah, I sat here and listened very well today. But thank you. Well,
that's right.
You did an excellent job.
the trick for me in life usually is not talking too much. All right, Michelle, today's the 21st. How long do you think?
I can get this done, I mean,
If
within,
you'll give us the rest of this week, we can have all this done, can't we?
I can get it done in like a week.
So you want to say let's look early May? Because that's going to put us.
Got a council meeting the
Council
7th.
meeting made the 7th.
Need to get this thing over pretty, before middle of June. I'm gonna be out of town for quite a
You want
while.
to roll right out of the
You wanna do
council
that?
meeting?
That's what I said. Are y'all okay with meeting
Would y'all be
after the
okay with
meeting?
that?
Yes, sir.
Just do it right after it. You know how
Sounds
much I
good.
love those all-day meetings, but it's, I'm teasing. But I think that makes the most sense, so we can go ahead and get that done, because if we have to make any more changes, that gives us the rest of May to get back together in case we're not ready just to go to full council with it after the next meeting. All right, so how does the schedule look for the council meeting on the 1st of May? Does it look like an hour or 2 hour?
No, right now, it's pretty lean, so,
So just put it, can we just put it on the schedule for 10 o'clock? If it's 11, it's 11?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Start before.
Can't start before? Oh, okay, so put it on, so 10 o'clock on the 7th?
mhm.
That work?
Okay. All right,
Oh, wait, hold on.
that's good.
You need me to go take care of that?
I rode through Pace and
I think I got it.
the airport. You know, they got 3 houses, and some nice homes over there. Charging like 200,000 and a little bit up. The house they gonna build over there about 200.
I got something I gotta move.
300, right?
That means
It's just on that first.
Yeah, I have a,
Yeah, I'm talking about right across from Tire Country.
Yeah, it was 300.
300.
300, aren't it?
Well, it's actually gonna be 700.
I have a,
700,000 per house? No, he's talking about
700
per house.
houses.
No, houses.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
I gotta move that. That's not gonna work for the regular meeting.
They're close to 300. High two.
Leave it there.
If I can, I'll call you back, but I'm just gonna, I gotta move that because of the
You
regular
gonna go to
meeting.
school, yeah?
I may just have to move them to the following.
That's just on that side road. That ain't including what's going on the other.
7th at 10.
Well, other side.
Right across the road.
Motion Motion to
I
adjourn.
need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. We are adjourned.